Hello students, welcome back to the final session on Unit 6, that is General Principles and Process of Isolation of Elements. In my last video we have seen something on the extraction of aluminium, which was done by Hall-Héroult process applying the principles of electrolysis, and lastly we have also seen the principle of oxidation and reduction, and from which we have isolated or extracted chlorine as well as gold and silver. Now in all these two steps we have ended with the impure metal or the crude metal. So the final step, whatever left over here, is refining of metals or purification of metals, which we will see today. Refining or purification of metals, the final step, that is Roman number 3. So first one was concentration of ores, second one conversion of the concentrated ore into crude metal, and the last one refining of metals. See, we have ended up with the impure metal, and that impure metal generally contains minor impurities present in it. So now the main task is to remove all those minor or trace amount of impurities whichever is present in that particular ore. So that removal of all those minute impurities present is generally termed as refining. Okay, removal of trace amount of or small amounts impurities in the crude or impure metal. So this refining technique makes use of the differences in the physical properties of the impurity and the particular metal. So there are slight differences. So differences in physical properties of metal and impurity. See students, in concentration we made use of the same thing, but there we considered the ore. Here we have impurity and the metal. So depending on these differences, there are 6 methods from which we can refine a particular metal. So let me list those. So first one is distillation. And second, liquation. Third, electrolytic refining. Fourth, zone refining. Fifth, vapor phase refining. And lastly, chromatographic methods. Okay, these are the 6 different methods by means of which we can remove the impurity present in that particular impure metal. It can be done either by distillation, liquation, electrolytic refining, zone refining, vapor phase refining, and finally chromatographic methods. Now we shall see one by one how exactly this procedure is done and examples of the metals which can be refined by these techniques. Okay students, now we will take up the first one, which is nothing but distillation. You might have heard something about distillation in class 11, that is somewhere in the beginning of your organic chemistry, where in which the purification of the compound was usually done in the process of distillation. See, this technique of distillation is applicable for low boiling metals. So the point, the difference what we take here is impurity will have the higher boiling point and your metal will have the lower boiling point. That principle is made use of here, and the examples used in this separation is zinc and mercury. Zinc and mercury can be refined or purified by this technique. See, you might be knowing what exactly happens in the distillation and all, isn't it? We take a distillation flask containing impurities along with the metal. Now we heat that particular distillation flask containing those two. What generally happens, since the metal has got lower boiling point, it will start to boil and then it will be converted into a gaseous form and it will come out of the distillation flask, and finally all those vapors are condensed and we end up with pure liquid. So that distillate whatever we get is our pure metal, and the impurities which have a higher boiling points are remained in the distillation flask itself. Okay, this is something regarding distillation. Then second one is liquefaction. Distillation is applicable for low boiling metals, that is boiling point is considered. Now in the case of liquefaction, we will take it of low melting metals, that is the melting point of the metals are very low in comparison with the melting point of the impurity. Example used for the metal in this case is tin. Tin can be refined by the principle of liquefaction. Now what we do in this liquefaction is we take the metal, impure metal with impurities, and it is placed on a sloping hearth or sloping furnace. Say somewhat, I'll just rough one. So I'll have here all your metal, everything will be kept here, and we'll heat these things here. On heating, what happens? The metal having low melting point will liquefy and will be collected over here as pure metal. Impurities will be left here only, as their melting points are very, very high. They remain at the top of the hearth itself, and pure metal is collected at the bottom since its melting point is very, very low. So this is how we separate impurity from the pure metal. Example used here is tin. Okay. The next one is electrolytic refining. In electrolytic refining, electrolysis is made use of. So which we have already studied during that electrochemical principles, we have subjected to electrolysis, isn't it? Now here we make use of anode and cathode. Now what generally is taken as anode and what is taken as cathode? In the electrolytic refining of metals, anode is generally taken as impure metal. Impure form of the metal is taken as anode and pure form of the metal is taken as cathode. That is, usually anode is taken in the form of thick strips and cathode is taken in the form of thin strips. Okay. A suitable electrolyte is also taken. We want an electrolyte, isn't it? Without any electrolyte, we do not have electrolysis only. So in that case, a suitable electrolyte is taken. What generally happens during electrolysis? Reactions takes place. So two reactions, one at anode and another at cathode. See, at anode what happens is we have the metal in its impure state. So this gets converted into metal ion I'll write it as n plus what, depending on the number of electrons present in that particular electron with the liberation of n number of electrons. So this is impure and it will be converted into its aqueous state on electrolysis. Now at cathode what happens? It will be the reverse of this reaction. All those metal ions whichever are present in solution, they take up the electrons and deposit as pure metal at cathode. So this will be pure. I have already said metals usually deposit at cathode or they are liberated at cathode, and hence in this technique they are generally deposited on cathode. Okay, so we take a impure metal as anode, which is usually taken in the form of a thick strip, and a thin strip of pure metal is taken as cathode. A suitable electrolyte containing the metal is taken, and during electrolysis the following reaction takes place. At anode, the impure metal decomposes to give back metal ions in aqueous solution, and finally at cathode those metal ions will take up the electrons and deposit as pure metal. One example given to you here for this electrolytic refining is copper. Copper can be refined by electrolytic refining, wherein which the anode is taken as impure copper and cathode is taken as pure copper, and the electrolyte used here is copper sulfate, CuSO4, aqueous solution of copper sulfate, or it may be mixed with slight acid. Acidified copper sulfate is taken as electrolyte. Now what happens at anode and cathode? Same set of reactions. Instead of M, we write it as Cu. So if I just write shortly, I have Cu at the anode converts to Cu2 plus with the liberation of 2 electrons. This is at anode, and at cathode we have that copper 2 plus ions taking up those 2 electrons and deposit as pure copper. As time proceeds, what happens, students? This impure metal whichever was taken in the thick strip, that decomposes and becomes thinner, and finally whatever the thin strip of metal was taken, due to the deposition of the metal from its surface, it becomes more and more thicker. And impurities, they all are collected at the bottom of that electrolytic cell, and they are called as anode mud. Usually in the extraction of copper in that anode mud, we may see certain important metals like selenium, tellurium, gold, silver, platinum, etc. in very small amounts, so by means of which we can even extract those precious metals from the anode mud which is obtained from the extraction of copper. This is something regarding electrolytic refining. Instead of copper, one more example given to you which can be refined by electrolytic refining is zinc. Zinc can also be refined by electrolytic refining. Okay students, we have seen something on electrolytic refining. Next we shall move on to the fourth method, which is nothing but zone refining. So I have already drawn the diagram for you. This is something, the principle or procedure of zone refining looks something as such. We already know zone means what? A particular region. We have to select that particular region and that is purified and that move on. Now we will look into the principle of this zone refining. So principle is that the impurity are more soluble in the melt than in the solid state of the metal. So whatever the impurities are there, they are more soluble in the molten state or in the melt than in the solid state of the metal. So this is the principle lying behind zone refining technique. The arrangement is something as such. Now if you just see here, it contains the metal rod. A long strip of metal rod is taken and we heat this metal rod by means of heaters which are movable, that is mobile heaters are made use of, and this heating procedure is generally done in an inert atmosphere or in an atmosphere of noble gas, which are usually inert. Now students, if you just see here, for the sake of simplicity, so I'll just take it only this much. Now I have the heater over here. Now if you heat these things, what happens? Only this particular zone will start to heat, and once if it reaches the melting point of the metal, what happens? It will start to liquefy. So once it has started to liquefy, what we do is we suddenly move this heater forward. Now my heater is placed somewhere here. I have the heater here now. Okay, I'll take this second zone of here. I'll start heating this. What happens now? This part where heating was stopped will start to crystallize. Being a metal, we don't heat now. The impurities whichever are present in this zone where no heating takes place, they move in the direction of heater, because they are willing more soluble in the molten state of the metal. They are not willing to be solidified. So what happens? They move along with the heater. Now it was here, now they came to the second zone, and once this zone began to melt, will still move on the heater further. Now I have the heater here, and this part will be, this is already cooled now. Now this will start to cool. On cooling, the metal present over there will crystallize, and hence what happens? Impurities, the impurity in the first zone shifted to the second zone on heating. The first and second zone impurities are moved to the third zone. So impurities will be moving here. Now once this gets melted, what finally we have is, we have all these impurities whichever are here, and finally we'll cut it off and we'll separate the impurity. So impurities in the molten state are finally removed. Now this procedure is repeated several times. They take it here, it is fixed at one end of the metal rod, this portion gets heated. Once it is liquefied or melted, it is moved further. Impurities also move along with that particular roller or metal heaters, and finally they are collected at the other end of the impure metal, which can be cut off. So on repeating this steps several times, what happens is we usually end up with ultra pure metals. That is purity up till 5 nines, that is 99.999% pure metals can be obtained by zone refining. Wherever we need this such ultra pure metals, we go for zone refining. Examples of the metals which can be refined by zone refining are silicon, germanium, indium and gallium. So since they are used as semiconductors, we usually need extra purity in their metals, so and in that case we make use of zone refining. Principle is that impurity are more soluble in the melt than in the solid state of the metal, and arrangement is something looks like this. With the movement of that mobile heater, impurities also move along with the heater, and finally they are collected at the other end of the metal. Okay, this is how we purify the metal by zone refining. After zone refining, we will move on to the next one, which is nothing but vapor phase refining. So vapor phase, that name itself is told there. We usually take a impure metal. That impure metal is made to react with another compound, and it is converted into a volatile complex, and that volatile complex is subjected to decomposition, and finally we end up with the pure metal. Simple. So the conditions whichever are applicable for this vapor phase refining technique is: 1, that metal should form a volatile complex with the available compound. So you will be treating with a compound, isn't it? So on treating, that metal should form a volatile complex. That is very, very important. Available compound. And once this volatile complex has formed, in the second step what it should do, that volatile complex should undergo decomposition, because we want our metal back, isn't it? If that doesn't decompose, should we get our metal back? No. So that volatile complex whichever has been formed, volatile complex formed, should decompose in order to recover the metal. So these are the two main conditions which are employed in the vapor phase refining. In generally, we treat the metal with an available compound and will be converted it as an volatile complex. That volatile complex should undergo decomposition to get back the metal. These are the two different conditions for vapor phase refining. Now let us look into the examples given over here. Two examples have been given to you which are very, very important. So in that first example is Mond's process. So Mond's process is usually employed in the refining of nickel. Nickel is usually refined by Mond's process. You may be asked a question, name the process which used in the refining of nickel. We write it as Mond's process, or the vice versa can also be asked, name the metal which can be refined by Mond's process. In that case we write it as nickel. Now what generally happens in this case now? In the refining process of nickel there are two steps, the same one. You will take that nickel and will treat it with a compound and we'll get a volatile complex. We'll take that volatile complex and we'll decompose that to get back pure metal. Now in this Mond's process, the available compound what we treat with nickel is carbon monoxide. So that is nickel Ni, so which is nothing but this is impure. This is treated with carbon monoxide, or you can just say it is heated with carbon monoxide at a temperature of 330 to 350 Kelvin temperature. On heating, what happens? We get a volatile compound of nickel, that is nickel tetracarbonyl, NiCO 4 times. So I have 4 CO. To balance this, I will make it as 4 CO. This is nickel tetracarbonyl. This is the volatile compound formed. Now what we will do, this is our first step, that is nickel is treated with an available compound which is carbon monoxide, and it is converted into a volatile compound which is nothing but nickel tetracarbonyl. Now we will take this nickel tetracarbonyl, same, that will be here nickel tetracarbonyl and volatile compound. Now this is decomposed, or it is heated at a slight higher temperature of 450 to 470 Kelvin temperature. At this higher temperature, this nickel tetracarbonyl will undergo decomposition to give back nickel and carbon monoxide. See students, initially we had taken impure nickel and it was treated with carbon monoxide, and when this nickel tetracarbonyl, that is the volatile compound, on decomposition this will end up with pure nickel, and all those impurities are removed from nickel. This is something regarding Mond's process of refining nickel, that is treating nickel with carbon monoxide at this temperature, ending with nickel tetracarbonyl, a volatile complex, which on decomposition at this higher temperature will end up with pure nickel, and all those impurities will be removed. This is one example. The second example is Van Arkel method. It is used in the refining of zirconium and titanium. Second example, Van Arkel method. This is used in the refining of zirconium, that is Zadar, or titanium, Ti. Okay, so Van Arkel method, this is applicable to refine zirconium or titanium. Now in this method what generally they do is oxygen, nitrogen, whichever are present as impurity in the metal is removed. So they are present as impurity in the metal, and all those things are removed in the Van Arkel method. Okay, usually oxygen and nitrogen will be present and they are removed. Now one example given to you, in that both of them have not taken, they have given you the example of only zirconium. What they do is, this zirconium is heated with the stream of iodine in an evacuated vessel, that is zirconium is treated with iodine. Now zirconium reacts with iodine to form a volatile iodide, zirconium iodide. So this zirconium iodide is volatile. So what we do next, that should be decomposed. Prior to that we have to write the balanced equation. I have 4I here and I have only 2, so we will make it as 2I2. Zirconium on heating with iodine will end up with the volatile compound zirconium iodide. Next we will take that zirconium iodide, and this is subjected to decomposition. So this the decomposition usually takes place at a higher temperature of 1800 Kelvin, and it is usually done on the tungsten filament. Okay, so this will undergo decomposition, and finally I'll end up with zirconium, which is pure with iodine. So here we had impure zirconium, and after all these process, the zirconium what we obtain will be pure. That pure zirconium will be deposited on this tungsten filament. Okay, zirconium treated with iodine in an evacuated vessel to convert it as a volatile compound, that is zirconium iodide. This zirconium iodide on heating at such a higher temperature of 1800 Kelvin gets deposited on the tungsten filament. This is how we purify zirconium by Van Arkel method. That is the fifth method, an example in the vapor phase refining. Now we are left out with the last method, that is chromatographic methods. Last method, chromatographic methods. So chromatography we have already studied in detail, isn't it? In the first year on somewhere in organic chemistry we have dealt various forms of chromatography. That is, chroma means color, wherein which what the principle here is generally the components are adsorbed at different rates. You know, whatever the different components, whatever are present in that particular substance, where we have to separate them, they are adsorbed at different rates or different time intervals or something as such. So in this thing, we usually take what the components what have to be separated are taken, and they are fed into a column. If you just take a column chromatography or something as such, so just thing here, we need a, we'll take a usually silica gel or alumina gel is taken as adsorbent. A mobile phase is added to this, which has eluent anything. This is usually the stationary phase, and a mobile phase is added, and all those components what we want to separate, that mixture is added here. If I take mixture A, B, C, now all that A, B, C, they will not, they will be initially, they will be here somewhere. If I take all those things, so A may come out at this level, this is for A, and B may come somewhere here, and finally C will come somewhere here. This is A, B and C. By means that is depending on the adsorption rates. They don't adsorb at same extent, isn't it? Someone may adsorb at a faster rate and some slower and some very slow. So by means of this we can generally separate all those different components which are present in that particular mixture. One simple example I have taken over here. Even in this chromatographic methods, even we can take silica gel, or we can take alumina gel. Different methods are there. Column chromatography, it is there. Gas chromatography, you have that, and even we have paper chromatography, something more. All these things which we have already studied in your first year chapter, so I am not going to explain all those things in detail. Just remember, students, all those different components, they are adsorbed at different rates. So that is a major principle lying behind this technique, and a mixture can be easily separated. We need a stationary phase and a mobile phase, and components to be separated are also added. Depending on their adsorption rates, we can easily separate all those various components present in the mixture. This is something regarding chromatographic methods. That is the last method. So finally we have come to the end of the chapter. That is the last step. Refining of metal is done for you. There are 6 different methods. So distillation, liquefaction, electrolytic refining, vapor phase refining, zone refining, and last chromatographic methods. I hope you all are clear with these concepts. Then the last thing left in this chapter is we have isolated or extracted aluminium, copper, zinc and iron, isn't it? Now why did we do that? What are the uses of that? That becomes the last part of the chapter, that is uses of some important metals. 4 important metals what we have extracted, that itself is given over here. We will list one by one. So the first one, aluminium. Now what are the major uses of aluminium? You just can write the uses whatever we have in our day-to-day life. The same one is also given over here. Okay. Now if you list the important uses of aluminium, it is usually, so one use given to you here is in the wrappers, aluminium foils. We make use of aluminium foils, that is usually in the wrappers of aluminium, usually seen in chocolates. And if I make use of foils, roti or something as such, whenever we order, that is usually delivered to us in that aluminium wrappers. Then next, aluminium have been also used as wires for electrical conduction in the form of wires. Even this being more reactive, it is used as a reducing agent, most reactive metal, and hence it is used as a reducing agent in the metallurgy of chromium Cr and manganese Mn. So which we can make use of Ellingham diagram, because aluminium will be somewhere in the below of the Ellingham diagram, and hence that metal oxide will be stable and being more reactive. Aluminium will be acting as reducing agent for all those metal oxide whichever are placed above it, and in that case chromium and manganese will make use of the reducing agent aluminium. And it also is made being light, that is usually alloys or very light and are of much use to us. We can use in usually aircraft parts, something as such, usually makes use of alloys of aluminium and are of great importance to us. So these are the some of the uses of aluminium what I have listed for you here. Then after aluminium we move on to copper, aluminium Al and copper Cu. Now if you list the important uses of copper, in that first one is usually wires for electrical conduction that can be used. Copper wires and all we see, isn't it? If you just watch something like solar panels or something as such, they usually make use of these copper wires, which are usually great conductors of electricity, and they can also be used for water pipes or in general steam pipes, or some may also be used in gutter pipes and all, where we make use of copper. And alloys of copper are of great use to us. Alloys, two major alloys, one with zinc, which is brass, it is an alloy of copper along with zinc, and another important alloy of copper is bronze, that it is an alloy of copper with tin, SN. So these alloys are also of great use to us. Okay, usually wires for electrical conduction, they can also be used in the pipes to carry water or steam, or somewhere in gutter pipes. Alloys, brass and bronze are of much more importance to us. Even we have copper utensils, copper bottom utensils have been used in our day-to-day life. Okay, after this copper we move on to zinc. Third one, zinc, Zn. So zinc is usually used in galvanizing iron. This is the most important use. You will study more in electrochemistry, somewhere in corrosion to prevent rusting. It is used in the galvanizing of iron. And even zinc is majorly used in batteries, primary batteries, secondary batteries. You have all those details in the chapter on electrochemistry, wherein which we make use of zinc. Majorly zinc is used in those batteries. And zinc dust. So zinc dust is usually used as a reducing agent. So in the manufacture of dye stuffs, paints, etc. And lastly, which I have already said, in alloys, that is usually in the brass, an alloy with copper. So these are some important uses, of which galvanizing iron is very, very important. Details will be studied later in the chapter on electrochemistry. Okay, then the last important metal was iron, Fe, the major building material. Without iron we don't have any buildings, isn't it? So that iron majorly in the form of alloy, wherein which we have stainless steel. So it is usually seen in utensils and others, and we even have nickel steel, an alloy with the nickel is made use in many things, and a building material. pure form of iron, that is wrought iron, is of much importance to us. I have already said Eiffel Tower is usually built on that, and wrought iron makes use of much more things. They are made use in anchors, bolts, all agricultural instruments, etc. are usually made up of iron. If you can go on listing many more, I have listed a few here for you, okay, and majorly in the form of alloy, stainless steel, nickel and others, building materials, and wrought iron is usually made in anchors, bolts, agriculture instruments, etc. So these are the some important metals and uses given for you in this particular chapter, that is uses of aluminium, zinc, iron and copper. So by these things, students, we conclude the chapter on general principles and processes of elements in detail. So to brush up the things whatever we have studied in these 4 sessions, I'll just take 2 to 3 minutes more to wind up with the session. So the session started something with the important compounds or keywords. What we dealt here was minerals, ores, gangue and metallurgy. We looked into the different procedures of metallurgy, that is concentration of the ore, conversion of the concentrated ore into crude metal, and finally it was the refining of the metal. We even listed some important minerals for zinc, copper, iron and aluminium. We started with the first method, that was concentration of ores, which was the removal of impurity which was present in that ore, and it can be done in 4 steps. Hydraulic washing, also called as gravity separation method, and second one was magnetic separation, and next froth flotation in an important method, and finally it was leaching. And leaching, bauxite of leaching is very important. Once the ore being concentrated, then next we went to the second method of metallurgical procedure, that was nothing but converting that particular concentrated ore into its crude metal, which involved 2 steps. The first one was the concentration of that particular ore into its oxide form, and the second one was the reduction of that particular oxide. So in the first method we had 2 steps, that is roasting and calcination. In both these methods the particular ore has been converted into its oxide form, and once that oxide form has been converted, and it is then subjected to reduction by selecting a suitable reducing agent. That reducing agent was selected by means of 2 principles. One, thermodynamic principles employed in metallurgy, and second, electrochemical principles employed in metallurgy. In the thermochemical principles we saw something on Ellingham diagrams and how successful was that Ellingham diagram in the selection of reducing agent. We also dealt some important applications of Ellingham diagrams, which included extraction of iron, extraction of copper and extraction of zinc. The iron what we obtained was pig iron, the copper what we obtained was blistered copper, and finally zinc as zinc splitter. Next, thermochemical principles were dealt, and later we went on to electrochemical principles making use of electrolysis. In that principle we studied 2 major extraction. One was extraction of aluminium by Hall-Héroult process, and another one was extraction of copper from low grade ores. Then finally oxidation reduction principles can also be used in the separation of that impure metal, and those 2 steps covered, and we went on to the final step, that was refining of metals or the removal of minute or trace impurities present in that impure metal. That involved 6 different methods. So distillation, liquefaction, zone refining, vapor phase refining, electrolytic refining and chromatographic methods. We studied all those things in detail with examples, and finally we listed some important uses of the metals in our day-to-day life, like aluminium, copper, zinc and iron. So with these things the chapter comes to an end. Hope you all are clear with the concepts whatever I have told to you. Thank you.